Hello, everyone, and welcome. I hope you're enjoying your summer. This is Jane Custer with Travel Alliance Media, and you have tuned in for, you're very smart to have tuned in, for a Dan Chappell seminar webinar, and a chance to win a signed copy of Dan Chappell's book, Get Your Ship, S-H-I-P as in Peter, Together, The Wealthy Travel Agent Guide to Sales. But you must stay tuned for the entire webinar, and we know you have. So I would tell you first to plug in your headphones if you have them. That seems to work best for many agents. And no, there's not a number to dial in. You have to listen through your computer. Your questions are done through chat. It looks like you found, or you already know where the Q&A box is, and Dan will be asking you some questions too, and you can just put your answers in there. We will get to the questions at the end of the webinar. Might not get to all of them, but he will receive a copy of all of them. Let's see, this webinar will be available for 1 full year starting tomorrow at travelpulse.com/webinars, but we'll also send you an email reminding you. And we will not announce the winner today during the event. The winner will be chosen today, but you will receive an email telling you who the winner is. All right, I think that's about it for our housekeeping. So let's get to the meat of this webinar. Today, you're hearing from Dan Chappell. He's the president of Chappell Consulting International. And Dan, welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Jane. I appreciate everybody joining us today. And Jane, thank you for hosting us today. It's wonderful to be here. It's wonderful to be able to share some insight and some information that with you that can help you truly grow your business. Before we start, I want to share an interesting statistic with you. And Jane and I were talking about this before we went on the air. She asked me, she said, so Dan, how many people actually, take what you and others are sharing and actually put it into action? And the statistic comes from the online learning community, and that is that roughly 95% of the people that participate in online training programs never actually finish them. And as a result, they don't take what the learnings are and implement them into their business. And that's a shame, because there's some really good, powerful information that I'm going to share with you and that you can get from others that will help you grow your business if you take the time to learn it and apply it to your business. And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about getting rid of the crap and achieving sales success in 30 days or less. I want to ask a question before we get started, and type in the box. I can't see the answer, so Jane, you can put it out. How long did it take you to make your first sale once you got into the business? Just type your answer into the question. Jane, if you can just kind of rattle off some responses to me.
Yeah, I will. Let's see. I'm waiting a second for them to come in. Let's see. Go full screen. Okay, I see some answers now. We've got 6 months, 3 weeks, 1 day, less than a day, 15 days, 3 months, 4 months. So all kinds of stuff. Well, a lot of 3 months.
Okay, a lot of.
Yes, a number of 3 months and a number of 1 month. So what do you think,
okay.
Dan?
That's great. Well, I'll tell you, the whole catalyst for this presentation today actually came, it started with a Facebook post that I was reading. It was one of the larger membership groups that's on Facebook, and because I kind of skim them to kind of see what people are saying. But there was a new advisor that was on there, and she'd been, and I say new, but she complained that it had been over 6 months since she joined and hadn't achieved a sale at that point. And she blamed her host agency. She was blaming her host agency for the marketing, not training her, and everything else. The thing about that, though, that really caught my attention was that over 100 other people commented that they were having the same struggles, and the numbers that I'm hearing were pretty much in line. 3 to 6 months was pretty much what most folks were saying. For those of you that got right in and got busy and started selling right away, that's fantastic. That means you already had a plan in place and you had a potential clientele in place. I guess my next question would be, how long did it take you after that to really get in the groove and start making sales outside of people who are immediate family to you? But you don't have to answer that. But a lot of these folks, they blame their host, they blame their consortia. I realize that particularly new people to the business, it's a sexy business to be in. So and people don't join the business really to get into sales. They get into the business because they like to travel and they like to take care of people. And then they get in, and it's kind of like Cinderella's carriage. It becomes a pumpkin when they find out they actually have to do some things that are kind of like a business. But overall, most of them blame their host and their consortia, but more than anything, they blamed their marketing. Now, unfortunately, in this business, marketing has become synonymous with selling in our lexicon. We're not in the marketing business, folks. We're in the selling business. It's a fact that the travel agency channel is the commissioned sales force of the travel and tourism industries. That's what we are. We don't get paid a commission to market anything. We get paid a commission to sell something. The suppliers, their job, the suppliers, the host agency, and the consortia, their job is to take care of the marketing for you. Okay? I was in the sales role with the supplier, and we paid the host and the consortiums a lot of money to do that on your behalf. That's the type of organizations they are. Now, I'm not saying that it's not an important part of your own individual businesses. You do have to do some marketing to attract clients, but your business isn't marketing. Your business is selling, and having a sales plan is probably more important than having a marketing plan when it comes to the business. There's kind of a fallacy in the business that if you build it, they will come. You put up a website, they'll come. You join a Virtuoso or Signature or Vacations to Go, or I'm sorry, not Vacations to Go, but Travel Leaders, that people are automatically going to start becoming attracted to you. And maybe to a certain degree, but for the most part, if that's your plan, you'll probably sit around, attracting crickets. However, if you have those pieces in place and those tools that are in place, and you take a proactive stance towards your business, then you can really, truly excel as you go through. So a little bit about me. I'm a sales and business advisor. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been a long-time columnist, almost 5 years, I guess, for Agent at Home magazine. I had my own agency for a number of years, and like many of you, I started in the business. I had a dream. I was working on cruise ships at the time, and at that time, most of the problems we dealt with on board were travel agent related. So I said, hey, you know what? I can do this. I can do a better job of this. And so that led me to, start from scratch in a city that I knew absolutely no one, and built by any example, pretty successful business. After we sold the company, I took on some roles with Cruise Holidays. Many of you may have heard of them. At the time, it was part of the Carlson organization, which is now Travel Leaders. And from there, I was recruited to start and run the U.S. business when Expedia bought Cruise Ship Centers, a Canadian company. And many of you may be part of Expedia Cruise Ship Centers. They're all great organizations. Following that, I had an opportunity to join Windstar Cruises as the Vice President of Sales. And one of the reasons I took that role was they were coming out of bankruptcy, and what they wanted to do was reconnect with the travel agency channel. And that's where I came from. That's who I am. That's what I'm all about. But I would attribute most of the success that I've had in the business is by focusing on sales and selling and making sure, because we get paid on that commission. And, I've spent a lot of money over the years on marketing with very little return because it's a reactive process. Whereas when I started really focusing and doing sales activities, that's when the business has really started to take off. I wrote a book, as As Jane mentioned, it's called Get Your Ship Together. Mark Murphy, who's the CEO of Travel Alliance, had this to say about it, that he can judge any business book based on, can he take what he's reading and put it into action immediately? And he said, this book does it. So that's why I wrote it. I wrote it for people to take action and to be able to get out there and do it. But before you get your ship together, you gotta get rid of the crap that you have going on in your life. You got to be able to get rid of this so that you can stay focused on what your objectives are. And CRAP stands for, and I wish I could take credit for this, but I saw it on a TED Talk, and it just fits so well. It stands for criticism, rejection, a-holes, and pressure. So when you get into business, when you start selling something, when you start doing something different, it's not unusual for people to criticize you, to tell you you can't do something, that you're not cut out for it. You don't have the knowledge. You don't have the expertise. You don't have the resources to make something like this work. And the fact is, you do and you can as long as you stay focused. So criticism is something we all deal with. It's something that unfortunately oftentimes comes from people who are close to us. But we got to let that roll off. You got to stay focused and keep a good mindset. One thing that myself and my fellow business advisors in the travel space is, we all agree on one thing. You've got to have a good mindset to be able to be successful and to be able to sell. And we're actors. They don't care if you had a bad day. Your clients don't. And when you roll out of bed, you make a decision to be a positive person and put on that smile and that face, and when you're talking on the phone or in your email or however, and that's how you do this. You have to put that aside. You have to put the criticism and the other stuff aside and be able to deal with your customer. Rejection, as I said, we're in the business of selling travel. Okay, you're going to deal with rejection. I don't care what you're selling, you're going to get rejection. So it's all in how you deal with it. When I was in college, I sold books door to door for the Southwestern Company. It's a great organization. And we were told in training, said, yeah, you might get a half a dozen doors slammed in your face throughout the summer, but don't worry about that. You're knocking on thousands. Well, this is a true story. First day, first house, I knocked on the door and it was slammed in my face. And I took a step back and was like, whoa, this isn't for me. This is not for me. And I went and I sat in a McDonald's for about 3 days and just internalized it, and it almost crippled me. My sales manager came out, and we went knocking, he went out with me, and I followed him, and we knocked on doors. And you know what? I saw how easy it was. People are genuinely nice for the most part. They're not attacking you personally. They just don't want your product, or they don't have the money. There's some reason for it, but it's not about me. It's not about us. So we have to learn how to deal with that rejection. And I went on to have a great summer after that. A-holes, we all have them in our lives. They don't help. They kind of get in the way. It's best that we kind of push them away or handle it however you want to. Pressure is another thing. We're in a business of deadlines. Whether it's deposit deadlines, final payment deadlines, getting people to ships and on tours and on airplanes. It's all about deadlines. But there's real pressure, and then there's manufactured pressure. There's pressure that we create ourselves, and that's the one that I want to talk about. If you put too much pressure on yourself, let's say, there's a lot of pressure to get back to a prospect very, very quickly. But if you know that it's going to take you, let's say, 4 hours to thoroughly research and prepare for a presentation for a particular prospect, don't tell them you're going to get back to them in an hour or 45 minutes. Tell them it's going to take a couple of hours. They'll understand. They would much rather have you, take the time and do it right than to get in there and do it, excuse me, just to kind of meet an artificial deadline that you put out there for them. So before we get our ship together, which stands for skills, habits, inspiration, and performance, we got to get rid of the crap. We got to get rid of the bad stuff that's in the way. So going forward, if I promise to share some great content with you that you can start using immediately, do I have your permission to take a couple minutes before the Q&A, and I want to share a couple ways that can help you become the wealthy travel agent. If this sounds okay, just type yes into the chat. If you say no, sit tight, enjoy the show, because you're going to learn a lot as we go through it anyway. But for those of you who really want to learn and be part of that 5%, that really takes what you learn and puts it into play. I'm gonna share with you a couple things that might help you out there.
And we
How's it
already
going?
have all yeses so far.
All yeses so far.
Yeah, the yeses have it.
Excellent, excellent. So I promise I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. I'm just going to share a couple things with you and give you the opportunity that if you want to take it to the next level, you can. So some things I need for you to do today. You need to be able to answer 4 questions about yourself and your business to really truly accelerate your sales within 30 days or less. First of all, what is your brand? And when I say your brand, I'm talking about you. I'm not talking about, your consortium, your host agency, or whatever. I'm talking about you. What is your brand? Number 2, what are you selling? You got to know what that is. Okay. Who are your customers? Okay. In order to achieve sales success quickly, you got to know who you're targeting, who your prospects are, who they are. But more importantly, probably the most important question here is, why should they buy from you? Why should they buy from you? Okay. Now let's see, this is a different system. Okay, so let's talk about you. Personal service brands. Okay. We're in the personal service business. We deal with people one-on-one or groups or what have you, but we're not selling air car hotel like an Expedia is. We actually try to have relationships with our clients that we have. And when people are doing business with someone, they are not necessarily want to do business with ABC Travel. They want to do business with Dan Chappelle or danchappelletravel.com. And so if you notice, some of the more successful personal service brands that you can see is like Betty McLean Travel, Valerie Wilson Travel, the Matthews team, #1 RE/MAX team in Texas for over 20 years and counting. That's Ronnie and Kathy. Their website is ronnieandkathy.com. Or even Rick Steves. Okay, Rick Steves. So these are personal service brands. These are things that people know. Now, if you are trying to build a business to sell, then yes, you may want to call it ABC Travel. But for the most part, you're doing business with other people and they're doing business with you. And it's a personal relationship that you have there. Mark Allen Salon is one, for example, and I use this because this is the salon that my wife's hairdresser works at. Now, my wife has been using the same hairdresser for 20 years. She does business with her. That hairdresser has gone through about 3 or 4 different styling salons, but she's the one that has the relationship with my wife. And that's how you are as with your personal service brand and dealing with people, is people are doing business with you, not necessarily ABC Travel. Even though they may be one and the same, they recognize you and what you're doing for them. Some of you may have gone to my website, which, it's the Wealthy Travel Agent, or wealthytravelagent.com, but most people, according to the statistics I have, they know me by name. So down in the lower right-hand corner, you're going to see danchappelle.com on the slide. That's my website as well. That's the personal brand that I have. So I'm going to encourage each of you, to get your own brand. This is the brand called you. Okay, you're the brand here. And in this day and age, we're in what they call it the gig economy. So people aren't just going out and getting jobs and staying here. So they are doing gigs, and we're in sales business. So we're doing gigs too. Every time we get a new customer, it's a new job. Okay, so that's what we're doing. We're building the brand called us. And if you don't have it already, I think you should go to GoDaddy, or I'm going to suggest you go to GoDaddy or whoever it is you get your web domains from, and type in yourname.com and see if it's available. If it's not, type in yournametravel.com or some sort of variation of that. If you've got a common name like, Bob Smith, then you're going to probably have to get a little bit more creative there. But you want to have your name in it. My domain, I bought that 20 years ago. Just because I was able to get it, and I haven't done anything with it until the last 5 years when I started doing coaching and consulting, and that's really what has drawn people to my website. So you want people to identify with you as the brand, or youtravel.com. And I know this is contrary to what you've probably been taught or heard from some of the folks that do more in the marketing, but I think if you're as a personal brand, as if you're not trying to build a business to sell, make it about you, because that's who people are doing business with. If you're wanting to build a business entity that you're eventually going to be able to sell, build it under a brand name. Like that's where wealthytravelagent.com, that's a brand name that I could potentially sell, but I don't want to sell it. So I'm doing business as danchappelle.com. Does that make sense? Okay, what are you selling? Okay, it's important to know, what products you're selling, and in particular, know that people buy based on destination first and then product second. So they all know where they want to go, but how are they going to get there and what venue and how they're going to, whether it's a hotel or a cruise or river cruise, whatever, that's all out there. Now, if you've only been in the business, I'm kind of I believe in specialization, but at the same time, I think you shouldn't just jump right into a specialty just because somebody tells you should do it. I think when you're first getting in, it makes sense to kind of learn the lay of the land, kind of be a generalist and kind of, sell a little bit of this and a little bit of that to everybody until you figure out what you want to do. Either the specialty is either going to choose you or you're going to do it. Even in medical school, everybody goes to medical school and they have the same curriculum up until they choose a specialty. Okay, then that's when they get in deep into it. And that's the part that we usually leave out in most of our coaching and teaching is we forget about that base education part, and that's kind of where the fundamental part of the business that you want to learn that and then narrow it down. Now, in this day and age, it doesn't make sense. I don't think you can say that you specialize in cruising, okay? Because cruising now is such a big, broad subject. You've got expedition cruising, river cruising, you've got big ship cruising, medium ship cruising, small ship cruising. You got a lot of different things out there. So if you want to specialize, and I'm going to use as an example river cruising, start with the destination first. So most river cruising is in Europe. Okay? So you have the destination. Now you're focusing on the river cruising in the region. Then you drill it down to an area that you can actually become a specialist or become an expert in. Now, unless you have, lived in France your entire life or 20 years, and that can be a specialty you jump right into, it might take you a little bit of time to figure out what that is. And I'm going to encourage you not just to jump into something like that, because this is like a marriage. This is a full-time, this is a commitment that's going to be for the life of your business. Because once you choose a destination or a product that you're going to specialize in, that's what you want to become known for. That's what's going to help people become attracted to you in particular, because you're a specialist in a certain area. Number 3, who are your customers? Who are your customers? When it comes to luxury travel in this day and age, it is the baby boomer. Okay? It's not the millennial. The millennials may travel in some way, shape, or form that way, but it's typically going to be the baby boomers because they control roughly 50% of the money in the marketplace today. Kind of ask a question around that too, and it's somewhat rhetorical, but if you look at, say, Seabourn or Tauk or NK, any of those kind of brands, or luxury higher-end brands, even river cruising, 20 years ago, what do you think their target audience was? Their average age was probably 60, 65. What is it today? Probably 60, 65. What is it going to be 20 years from now? Probably 60, 65. And that's because of the length of the trips and the cost of the trips. The segment that can afford the time and the money to do it is typically in that 60 to 65 range, or 55 plus kind of range in there. And that's, so you hear a lot about millennials. Their time's going to come, but right now, if you really want, the biggest opportunity is in the baby boomer market. Now, if your product specialty is Disney World, is it something that you're going to really focus on the baby boomers? Probably not so much, except for maybe multi-generational travel and stuff like that. So knowing who your customers are is important, because that's who your prospect audience is. And what we're going to talk about in a little bit is how to reach that particular target prospect, not the ones that want, if your target prospect is, let's say, the river cruising. you don't necessarily want the $299 Cancun package, right? So why are you don't want to go out and get those people. You want to target the people who are going to buy the kind of product and that you sell as part of your specialty. Hopefully that makes sense to everyone. The most important question here is, why should they buy from you? You know, let's face it, we all sell basically, you know, there's some, depending on your consortium or host or whatever, you may have this, that, or the other, but we all basically sell the same product for roughly the same price. Or we can sell it for roughly the same price. If you want to discount it, you can. If you want to mark it up, you can. But that's pretty much it. We are agents for those particular brands. We don't set the pricing necessarily on them and things like that. So the big question comes, if everybody can sell essentially the same thing, why should they buy from you? Well, it boils down to a lot of things, but I think most importantly is your ability to make yourself an indispensable part of the vacation experience. Something that, you know, you are just as important as the airline ticket, as the hotel or cruise room, as the transfers. That whole package, you want to be just a piece that they can't do without. You get that through, a lot of it's through experience, through your travel experience, your education experience, your knowledge that you can bring to the table. You know, dinner reservation, I was talking to one of the folks I coach earlier this week, and he was saying, you know, he had someone who wanted to go to Paris. Well, you can buy it cheaper somewhere else, but the way he explained and the way he made himself indispensable was, you know what, his parents lived in Paris for 20 years. He knows the restaurants, he knows where to go and the things to do and stuff like that. So he can make that vacation experience something special as opposed to just a cookie cutter run-of-the-mill thing. So between his knowledge and experience, he's able to do that. And that's what I'm encouraging you to do, is to gain that knowledge and experience. Connections. Connections are key. You know, it's not about who you know, it's about who knows you. And the great way to do this is when you're traveling on FAMs or vacation or what have you, go to the front desk of the hotel or on the cruise ship or the resort and ask to meet the front desk manager. Okay, these are people that can help you. And say hi, exchange business cards. Then when you get home, send them a note, send them an email, say, hey, great to meet you, blah, blah, blah. And then follow it up a month or two later and do that on a regular basis. Now you have a relationship that you're building. And then when you are sending someone to that destination, you're able to, you know, say, hey, I've got some clients coming. Is there anything special we can do? Or I'd like to do this for them. Can you help me out? You know, that's what that's all about. And it doesn't, just because you don't know them personally or you don't have regular conversations, doesn't mean they know who you are, don't know who you are. LinkedIn is a great way to do this, so I would encourage you to do that. Perks. What kind of perks? I'm not just talking about the perks you're going to get from your consortium or your host agency, but what other perks can you have? I'll tell you one thing that I used to do when I had my agency is I advertise myself as if you're an American Express Platinum or Centurion card holder, call us. We can help you. Why? Because American Express Platinum and they have cruise benefits. They have hotel benefits. They have all kinds of perks that come just from being a member of that credit card. So if you educate yourself on what those are, you can use that to help entice people in. And then anticipating their needs. You know, they, in most cases, particularly at the luxury end of the market, they just want somebody who will take care of it for them. You know, they don't mind paying a little bit more if they know they're in good hands. And part of that is anticipating needs. So, you know, particularly with your repeat clients, you want to be able to, you know, say, hey, I'm going to get your visas for this, or I'm going to set you up for your inoculations for your South Africa trip, or what have you. You know, you want to anticipate the things ahead of time and then let them know so that they don't have to worry about it. And that's part of making yourself indispensable there. Does all this make sense? Great. Okay. So now, how do you get to 30-day success? Well, little or no marketing is required, but you are going to have to take a proactive stance to build your business this way. It boils down to three things. It's all about leads, number of leads you have, number of quotes you give, and the amount of sales you give. If you know those three numbers, then you can build out a business plan. You can build out a sales plan that is going to get you where you need to go, and it's going to cost you virtually nothing to do except some time. So let's say, for example, for every 10 leads you get, you're going to give 6 quotes and you get 3 sales. Okay? So if you want to get 9 sales, or let's say 12 sales in a month, how many leads are you going to have? Well, 40. How many quotes are you going to have? 24. And that's going to give you 12 sales, right? Okay. That's how it works. It gets into the numbers. Once you kind of get an idea, this is not a hit miss, every time you do it differently. No, there's a system that we're going to follow, and I'm going to share that with you here in a minute, because it's the simplest thing in the world about a business. It's according to Peter Drucker, who is very famous, he's passed away, but one of the management consultants. The purpose of a business is very simple. It's to create and keep a customer. Create and keep a customer. Now, a lot of people worry about the create part, but they forget about and not spend a lot of time on the keep part. And the keep part's really where the money is there. So I want to talk to you a little bit about how do you find these people. And that was a question that came up even before we went on the air. Was where do I find these clients? Well, there was a study done by a sociology professor at Stanford University by the name of Mark Grenovetter, and it's called The Strength of Weak Ties. And it was all about how people get jobs. And this has been considered to be one of the groundbreaking studies of the 20th century. It's been applied to the civil rights movement. It's been applied in a number of other areas. Malcolm Gladwell and a number of authors have recognized what it is and how it works in certain situations. And sales is one of these. And it's really about, who is going to actually do business with you from what we call your circle of influence. So how many of you, again, rhetorical question, how many of you have had people who are close to you, friends, family, come to you and say, hey, you know what, we want to do a trip to Disney World or Europe. Can you help me out here? Yep, great. And you give them all this information and you never hear from them again. They go silent on you. I guess the term today is ghosting. They ghost you. Or you hear that, you know what, they booked it with the travel agency down the street. If it hasn't happened to you yet, it will. Just be patient. It will. But there's a reason for that. And that is because while they're comfortable talking to you about information, they're not comfortable doing business with you. They're more comfortable working with someone they don't know. And that's the weak tie. Now, statistically, it's about 10 to 15% of the people who are close to you are going to do business with you. 65 to 70% are going to be at the second and third level. Then it drops off exponentially after that. So we know this going into it. So it makes sense to get to that second and third level of where we are. Now, there are some caveats to this now, and it's all because of Facebook and things like that. So people who used to be close to you are now distant, but yet you've gotten in touch with them again. That's kind of helped, really helped bring in good qualified prospects. Now, the beauty of this is that, as I said, you're not going out there asking for people who want the cheap packages. You're going for someone in particular who fits the profile of who you want to do business with, which brings us to referral marketing. And that's why this system works. And I can just hit on the periphery of this, but basically the people who are close to you, they're not going to do business with you for the most part. They're going to put up the sign of the cross like you're selling Amway or Shackley or some network marketing kind of thing, and run away from you. So we want to handle them a little bit differently. If we know that the bulk of the business is going to come at that second and third level from people that we may have met once or twice or don't know at all but are close to them, we want to use them to get to that level. And when I say use them, I don't mean in the way it sounds, but we're going to ask the people close to us for help. Now, if they want to do business with, don't let them come to us. But when we go to them, we're going to ask them for help. So Jane here, who's a travel professional, and she's got the folks who are close to her, she's going to go to them and say, hey, Bob, I'm specializing in European river cruising. Who do you know that you may have talked to recently that has mentioned going to Europe or is interested in a river cruise, or maybe someone that you know who has already taken one? Can you help me here? And Not everybody's going to say yes, but for the most part, people like to help each other, so they're gonna help you. And then you ask for the contact information for the people, or for them to pass on your information. And then you're asking for something specific, not for something that you don't kind of business you don't necessarily want to have. So that's going to help you get to that second and third level. And because you're far enough apart, from a relationship standpoint, they'll be more than happy to do business with you, particularly because it's coming as a suggestion or a recommendation from someone that you mutually know. And that's really what counts in there. So I call this referral marketing. It's prospecting. That scares a lot of people, but this is where you are proactively reaching out and asking for a specific prospect profile from people who are close to you, and then going out and then cultivating a relationship from there. This is not sending a postcard to them and waiting for them to reach out to you. This is not sending them an email and waiting for them to reach out for you. They're not sending them a magazine or something and waiting for them to react. You are taking charge and proactively going out and growing that part of the business. So there's an expression in golf that's drive for show, putt for dough. And in our business, when you get the ball in the hole, that's closing the sale. That's where you make your money at. Getting there can be a pretty roundabout process unless you have a system that's going to really help you get there. And the Wealthy Travel Agent sales process it's a 6-stage process. It starts out, and prospecting is not part of it. That sits outside of this because it's feeding into this loop here. But it starts out with a rapport, finding commonality with someone. Then it's getting into the qualifying and research, asking the questions, the who, what, where, when. But more importantly, you want to ask them why. You want to try and create emotional connection. So ask them why they want to go on a particular trip. Remember, most people choose destination first and then everything else second. So why do they want to go there? Maybe there's some deep-rooted thing, whether it's finding family or whatever. But if you get to that, most people aren't going to ask that question. So if you ask why, that's going to help you create that emotional connection there. Once you've asked a lot of questions, then you get to the point where you're going to present them with what their option is. Notice I said option. You want to always try to present them with just one option. You want to have something in your back pocket just in case you didn't get enough information from the qualifying part. But you want to give them, because they came to you. You're the expert. They want you to help them make the decision for them, not give them a bunch of choices that's just going to totally confuse them. So narrow it down to one or two, preferably present them with one based on everything that you've learned from them. And when you're done, ask for the sale. I see this more and more over the years that people will give a lot of information and then they'll say, okay, why don't you go home and talk it over with your spouse and get back to me when you're ready to make a decision. I cannot tell you how often I see that. Ask for the sale. At the end of the presentation, and they've asked some questions and stuff, you just say, what credit card would you like to put that? Would you like to put that on your American Express Platinum card so that you get these benefits? Just ask the question. What's the worst they can say? No. Which takes us to the next level, where they ask questions and objections. And most of the time, they're not making objections. They're asking more questions to clarify what you have and what the package looks like in there. Okay? And once you've answered the questions, then what do? You ask for the sale again. And if they say, well, I've got more questions, okay, great. Or they say, you know what, I have to check with my spouse. Which brings us to the follow-up. Now, are you just going to say, okay, go home and call me when you're ready to talk it over and call me when you make a decision? No. You're going to say, you know what, that's great. I wouldn't make a decision like that myself. I know I wouldn't personally. My wife would kill me. But, I wouldn't want to make a decision in that way. So why don't you take this evening, go home, talk about it, and I'll reach out to you. I'll contact you tomorrow at noon, and we'll talk about the next steps. Okay? And then it continues on from there. Now, I want to focus right now on the follow-up process. The follow-up process is really where the money is, and this is where most of us tend to drop the ball. And it's, a lot of times it's not intentional. It's, okay, you're busy with new clients, new prospects coming in, new quotes to get out. You've already given them theirs, and you're waiting for them to get back to you instead of proactively, following up with them. It's a shame because you've already put a ton of work into the the ones you need to be following up with. So this is where I'm going to illustrate why this is so important here. 48% of the people give up after the first contact. In other words, they send them home and they never hear from them again. Okay. 25% of the salespeople give up after the second, 12% after the third, 5% give up after the fourth contact, but yet most of the sales are made after 5 or more contacts. And this is from the National Sales Association. Microsoft validated all of this information. This is the truth. So, don't expect to send somebody a quote and have them immediately respond and book. You're going to get some of that. But for the most part, you're going to have to work on the relationship and doing the follow-up. But this is where a lot of people get lost. What do you do? What's the follow-up look like? Well, follow-up is there's a system for that too. There's a sales process, there's a follow-up process. So the follow-up process is you've told them you're going to follow up, so you call them or email them. I would suggest do both. Particularly if you're going to call, leave a message. A lot of people don't pick up, but leave a message. They'll listen to it. Everybody's got caller ID, so they know you called, so do it. So be personal. Say, hey Jane, this is Dan at ABC Travel or Dan Chappelle Travel. Just calling to talk to you a little bit about the travel package that we talked about yesterday. So be relevant. Okay. Know you've had time to discuss this with your spouse. I'm calling today to follow up with you and see which credit card you'd like to put that on today, so that you can make sure that you take advantage of all the benefits that we have to offer as part of that package. That takes you to the entice part. Then the call to action is, this is a great package. I have it on reserve for you until midnight tonight. Let's talk more about this in a couple of hours, that kind of thing. And then boom, then you jump back into the follow-up thing. Just because, I'm going to throw this out there too, just because a cruise line or a tour company, whatever, they may give you 5 to 7 days option. I don't think a lot of them do that much anymore. That doesn't mean you have to tell your prospects that they have 5 to 7 days. I would tell them they have 24 to 48 hours. That puts some urgency into it. Okay, and then, you're holding on to it, but then you can say things like, well, I'll see if I can extend this, and you've already got it waiting there for them if you need to. But you have to create some sort of urgency for them to actually make a decision, and otherwise, a lot of times they'll just drag it out and never make a decision as we go through. So the next thing we want to talk about real quick is high-value sales activity. Now, one of my corporate clients I was working with asked me to kind of put something like this together based on their agents are required to earn $7,500 for the company up front. They average $350 per transaction, so that's 22 transactions a month. So that gives you an idea of what we're looking at here. So based on a 40-hour week, how do we time block that? What does that look like? Well, in a nutshell, basically you should be spending 65% or more of your time on high-value sales activity. That means leads, quotes, making the sales, follow-up activity, a little bit of servicing of the new. But just remember, every time you touch a booking that you already have put to bed, it costs you money. You have to bring it back out. You have to, whether it's pricing, whether it's dining, whether it's airplane seats or whatever, you have to touch it, and that all takes time. And so we want to try and wrap all this up as much as you possibly can in that first part of the sales process. When you get the deposit from them, make sure everything is in order. That way, when it comes to the follow-up, when the service of the existing, like when the final documents come in, things like that, then you don't have to worry about a lot of changes and stuff that have come in. And you're only literally touching it on 2 separate occasions versus multiple times throughout. That, anytime you touch the booking, it's going to dilute the value of it. So focus on remember, we're in the sales business. So focus on sales activities versus service activities. and take advantage of your consortia and your host agency marketing. I'm telling you, we, as a supplier, we pay a lot of money to them when I was doing this, and it's effective. You just have to use it. And if they don't have the marketing that fits the type of business you're trying to create, because remember, it's your business, then maybe it's time to consider a different host or a different consortium that is more in line with what your goals are for your company, not just what they're putting out there for you. But for the most part, you have a choice of what you participate in with most of the organizations. So, in 30 days to sales success here, you need to be able to, one, you got to get rid of the crap before you can get your ship together. You need to answer those 4 key questions. You want to be able to keep your sales funnel full of qualified leads, and you do that by being proactive and reaching out to your circle of influence, the people who are close to you, to reach the people who will actually do business with you at that second and third level. Following a systematic sales process. If you try and do it one-off every time, it's going to slow you down. You're not going to be able to tighten up that the sales cycle so that you can spend more time selling other things and other activities. But it also is, if you know where you are in the process and you get distracted, you can always go back to it instead of trying to think, oh, what did I do here, what did I do there, that kind of thing. So you follow that process, and spending time on high value sales activities. If you want to achieve sales success in 30 days or less, these, in my opinion, these are the key areas that you need to concentrate on. My experience with this. To think is easy and to act is hard, but the hardest thing in the world is to act in accordance to your thinking. So we can sit here on this webinar and I'm sharing a lot of information with you, and it's easy to consume and that kind of thing. But to actually take action on it and do some of the stuff is difficult. But to be able to do what you're thinking and combine that and get your actions in alignment with that so they're all congruent, that's hard. That's hard, and so that takes work and concentration and focus, and so that's kind of where we kind of want to lead with this, because you can try and do this on your own, and a lot of people do, and a lot of people become like professional webinar watchers. They gather a lot of information, but they don't take the action. They don't take what they've learned and put it into action. Again, they're part of that 95%. I don't want you to be part of that 95%. I want you to be part of the 5% that is actually going to, take some action and get some benefit about, even if it's just what you learned from here today. Take action on some of this, and that'll help you out. Mark McCowan is someone I've worked with. I've been coaching with him as part of Mastermind Group and that I work with and things like that. But he likes how I operate. Now, one of the things that I want to share with you is the success path. And we are all at various stages of this, whether it's you're just dreaming about getting into the business, you just joined, you're learning, you're a hobbyist, you're more of a traveler as part of it, get into a part-time, turn it into a full-time, where it's a job, take it to the next level as a career. Then when we say get into the wealthy, what I call the wealthy travel agent area, this is where you have a lot of repeat business, you're achieving and blowing away the goals that you have set for yourself. So it's not a hobby, it's not just a part-time job kind of thing. This is truly, you are invested in your business to the greatest extent possible, and you're seeing the greatest benefits that you can get out of that possibility. So I want to introduce you to the Power Players Club, and this is a membership group that I started about a year and a half ago. Outside of my Selling to the Affluent program, everything that I've created from an educational standpoint is included in the Power Players Club. It has the sales acceleration system, which combines not just the sales process, but the business building process. It has how to sell, the full program on how to sell and compete with Costco. It's got how to sell insurance, where you're really going to double, triple your insurance sales. All kinds of templates, business plan templates, marketing plan templates, sales plan templates, all sorts of stuff in there that can really help you. And it's just a month-to-month membership program. So you can join, you can quit at any time. There's no refunds, but if you sign up and decide you want to leave, your membership is good through the end of the period that you've already paid for there. And to join, just go to wealthytravelagent.com, or, as I said, danchappelle.com, and just click on the link at the top up there in the top bar. It says Become a Power Player. And this is what we want to achieve with you, is we want to help you make more money. We want you to have more time, become more motivated, and have more fun doing the business. You know, that's what we're in. We're in a fun business. We got really cool products to sell, so we want to have fun doing it. But to do that, we have to help you create a success plan, and that's what the program, the Sales Acceleration, does. You'll learn the skills you need for selling and prospecting. We'll show you as part of that program how to implement them. And then if you need any help, you know, feel free to send me an email, and I'm happy to help you out in any way I can. I get that from a lot of folks that are members. They'll shoot me a question about this and that. You know, we don't get into in-depth, you know, planning out your business as part of this. That's a different thing, but private coaching. But I'll help you out. You know, I'll give you some hints and pointers where you need them. It's only $49.50 a month. As I said, it's month to month, hassle-free. You want to cancel, cancel, and it's just good through the end of the month. But for a lot of folks, it's a good investment because it really, what the information that's in here fills the gap between what your host and your consortium is doing and the suppliers. This isn't about supplier information. I'm not going to teach you product. I'm going to teach you how to sell. I'm going to teach you how to build a business that will produce the kind of results that you're looking for out of this. And I wanted to make it available to as many people as we possibly could, and so that's why I put it all into this membership group. If you join now, as part of this, I'm going to send you a personalized copy of my book, Get Your Ship Together, and I'll take care of the shipping and handling out of that. It's a great deal. A lot of people take advantage of this, sometimes just for the book offer, but it's proven to be, the book really complements what the material that you get in there, so you'll have the ability to learn a lot. But I don't care if you do, if you do this, don't just do it to buy a book or to get some templates. Join because you want to grow your business. That's what it's there for. It's there to help you grow your business. Because you can't build a reputation, you can't build a business on what you're going to do. You got to do it. It happens based on what you are doing. And with that, I want to just open it up for questions, any comments, anything else. I'd encourage you to follow me on YouTube at Wealthy TA, Facebook, just Wealthy TA, and if you're not connected with me on LinkedIn, please do so. You can connect or follow with me on LinkedIn at Dan Chappelle. And with that, Jane, I want to just turn it over to you, and let's see what we got for questions.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, let's get to some questions. So to our audience, maybe just start with one thing Dan said that you're not doing now that you want to do or that makes sense to you, or one thing you're doing, like trying to sell to friends and family and deciding you're going to stop that and redirect your energy. So you might start with something simple. Let's see. And have an open mind, because you don't log in so you can prove to yourself how you knew it all already. And Dan doesn't know it all, because if you knew it all, you wouldn't have logged in the first place.
Well, and I'm the first to tell you, I don't know it all. I'm constantly learning every day. Right. So, but I have experienced a lot, and I've seen a lot as part of the various roles I've had in the business, and that's where I've kind of encapsulated all of this into the programs that I offer. Okay,
yes. So let's see. I tried to put these in order. Let's see. Okay. Oh, this is kind of interesting. Let's see what you think about this, Dan. This gentleman says, I'm an agency owner. Why would I want my consultants to brand themselves?
Well, it depends. If your agents are independent contractors, then they can do whatever they want. Now, that said, because if they are, if they're employed by you, then maybe not. It may not be the best thing. But for independent contractors, yeah, I mean, they would want to brand themselves. They would want to affiliate themselves with your business. It's a choice they have. It's up to them if they want to do it or not. Not all independent contractors stay with the same agencies over time, just like hairdressers move around. Not saying to encourage that or anything, but I'm a fan of particularly independent contractors or independent business owners is to become independent. Now, if they are working for you, they're salaried, you define the way you want to do business with them as an agency owner. I'm not saying you don't do that, but it's an interesting question, and that's the approach I would have to it. I know with many of the larger host agencies, many of the agents that are working with them are branded on their own. They have their own brands. They have their own companies, and they use the host agency for the benefits, the marketing benefits, the back office benefits, and the things that it has to offer there. I hope that makes sense. It probably didn't answer the question completely.
But I think, well, let's see. I think that really answered it, and certainly you need your people to know, to define who they are and what it is they bring to the table, like you were talking about, what it is that I personally offer. That, of course, is universal because they're going to sell more.
Well, and particularly if they are responsible for growing their own business. What do they want to be known for, and how do they want to be known for it, although they are part of the host agency? I'm a big fan of host agencies. I'm a big fan of the consortia. I think anybody who's not affiliated with one of the two is, doing themselves and their business an injustice. So, but that said, there is many different ways to do business in the travel business as there are travel professionals out there. So, how one person wants to operate their business may be different from the way somebody else does. And, as I said, I don't have all the answers, and you may not agree with me, but from an independent contractor perspective, which is what most of this presentation is targeted towards, I'm a big fan of, danchappelle.com or janedoe.com. And that's what I want to, about what I want to be known for. Then I will be a member of that host agency or that consortia. But I'm the one responsible for building my own business. I'm the one responsible for getting my own leads. I'm the one responsible for, now, if it's somebody who you're driving them leads to and they're part of your business, that's a different story. And again, it's all about how you want your business structured.
Right. Okay. And okay, I know you've addressed this before. How do you overcome the folks that just have you do the work of looking for them and then they book it themselves or with some other site that was cheaper than what you had quoted?
Charge them a fee. Simple as that. Charge them a fee up front. If they're going to book with you, charge them a booking fee, a research fee, and so on. Now, when it comes to fees, I have, my take on this is a little bit, I don't think everybody can charge fees. I think you can charge fees if you bring value, and you have something that's worth buying. But if you're just doing a transaction and give them a price quote, well, I don't know about that. There's two different schools, but, that's the way I would do it up front. I'd say, here's my booking fee. It's $250. I'm also not a fan of applying that to their purchase because if you're going to charge a fee, it's because you have value to add, and that's it. But it's also a good way to weed people out.
Okay, great. Let's see. A lot of these, of course, you covered in the presentation. That's the only thing about asking questions in real time. A lot of things people put out there and then you answer it. Let's see. Well, I think we got really to the main ones. Dan, thank you very much. It's always inspirational to me too to listen to what you have to say and to remember how to apply those things. So.
Well, and I will say this: I want to thank whoever the agency owner was that asked the question about why he or she would want his people to be branded themselves. That's a question I haven't gotten before on any of these programs, and so it's an interesting. And again, it's how you want to do business. If some of them encourage them to do business on their own for a lot of reasons, for legal reasons. Because of the independent contractor laws, they encourage them. I know some of the larger host agencies, many of them require the independent contractor to actually be incorporated as a business, as an S or an sub S or an LLC, not just as a sole proprietor, because that helps maintain the legal separation if any questions come up, and you know, they do come up. Yeah. So it's an interesting question. I'm glad it was asked.
Yeah, and you'll see who asked it. You're familiar and have worked for the company this person works for. So
okay, cool.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting too. I hadn't seen it, but so thanks, agents. Dan, thanks for your time. Agents, thanks for tuning in. I know you will find that it was worthwhile, and have a great summer, everybody.
Great. Thanks, everybody, and I look forward. If you have any questions, dan@danchappelle.com, or just go to the website, danchappelle.com.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.